Okay, yeah, another fantastic toss by Thomas. And next up, we're going to be having Mark Pillar from Backendless. Mark is the founder of Backendless, who will be talking about reviewing the productivity boost that one can receive when working with no-code systems to build an application. And afterwards, we will also have some time to answer your questions. So please send us your questions into the Q&A portion of Pine, and we will be happily to send those to our speakers and get your questions answered today. Mark, how are you doing today?
So I will start with a super quick slide. I actually have just one slide because I want to spend the rest of the time in the actual demo, because I think that's going to be speaking volumes much better than any slides. So let me share my screen. And the only slide that I have is about me, because I think it's going to be more concise. So I'm a founder of Backendless, started the company in 2012. It is my third business, 100% bootstrapped, never raised any capital. Sort of proud of it, because it's kind of an accomplishment to be able to build a successful company without raising any outside of capital. I'm a technologist in heart, an entrepreneur now, but I still enjoy doing a lot of kind of technical stuff and coding and no coding, I guess. And in the past, I worked for big and small companies, including American Airlines and some telecom behemoths like MCI and some integration companies. But anyway, I've been running, I guess, my own businesses for the past almost 20 years. Anyway, that's all I have as far as the actual slides. So let's switch to the actual demo. So as far as the demo, what I prepared is I wanted to talk about, how fast can you build applications if you're not getting yourself bogged down with the actual coding. Because with no code, one of the, I guess, greatest offerings of that revolution or evolution, however you would like to see it, is just the ability to express the logic that you have without any code. And specifically, I use the word logic because when you look at the no-code tools and platforms and systems, what I see is there are like two camps. One is just focuses primarily on the UI, which is great, for expressing sort of experiences in something that is more dynamic and interactive without just looking at the static mock-ups. And then and another camp is just basically focuses on the logic and implementation. And of course, there is a mix between the two where you can think about the entire application, both the UI and then any kind of business logic, and being able to create the whole thing without writing a single line of code, which is really the biggest promise of no code. So with my company, what we did is we started with actual backend. Okay, and the whole name, the concept of backendless, it stems from the idea that you don't need to worry about the backend. So it's not only no code, it's just no backend as far as you are concerned when it comes to building an application. Of course, there's backend. Of course, there are servers. Of course, there's a ton of complexity. But when you build an application with backendless, at least what the idea that we started with is that you just don't worry about the backend. So here, what I have at the demo is actually just a sample backend. What you see is what we call backendless console. And then what I will do is I will just demonstrate how you can think about or interact with the backend and then move to the UI to create user experience and then interfaces that interact with that backend to create a complete application. So here, as far as the backend, it's a fairly traditional backend, or at least how we present it to the users. You have a list of tables, you have all your data, you can create new tables, you can navigate between relations from one object to another. So and here you can basically create new records. And of course, on top of this, there is API, okay? And this API, originally, when we started the company, we were saying, okay, guys, if you're an Android or iOS or JS or whatever coder, use this backend. Here are SDKs, and you can just start interacting with our backend. Of course, as time was passing by, we see a whole new generation of companies coming up that provide a way to create those user interfaces without any code. And for those, we added a lot of integration in our system where you can basically tap into our backend, which is a highly scalable, super powerful backend that can be created on the fly. Okay, you just don't need to know anything about super complex architectures or how to structure your database. All of it is going to be done for you. So let's say you created your backend, which is basically like a click of the button where you just create new app and the backend is going to be created for you. And with that, you get database, files, user management, whole 9 yards. So let's say you have the database and you created your data tables. By the way, as far as the data table creation, we have a system where you can actually create it visually. So you can just connect all the tables together, declare all your columns. Anyway, so whole 9 yards there. But anyway, so let's say you have your backend and you want to connect it from Bubble, from Wix, from Adalo, from all the applications that provide fantastic experience for creating UIs. Here, let's say for your database, you click on this button and it's called Generate API Docs, and then select a format that you want. So let's say Swagger 2.0 is like the standard. Click Generate. We immediately give you the URL. And then here, if you open this URL, that's going to be like complete Swagger document with all the APIs, with everything that you need for your data table. For your database, including all the data tables. So this way, you can instantly start interacting with your database that sits in Backendless from any of the tools that can consume it through the APIs. Anyway, and then, of course, as you build applications, there is logic, okay? And then quite often, you want to put this logic on the server because putting it on the client side may not always be the best, because if the client applications are deployed and you have tens or hundreds of thousands of users, updating every single device is not a good idea. Therefore, you can put that logic in the centralized manner on the server. So now we have a capability called business logic. And here, what I'm going to do is I will create an API service on the fly using a system that we call codeless. So with Backendless, of course, you can deploy your business logic in Java and JavaScript, but we have a no-code conference. And what we added some time ago is an ability to create business logic without any coding, and that's the codeless system. So here, let's create a demo service. That's going to be an API service, and let's call this method get countries because we just looked at the countries data table. So create this get countries, and then we created this placeholder that you can just click on edit, and then this will be the logic for no-code logic for our API service. The cool thing that we have here, there are a lot of cool things, but one of them is that for every single thing that Backendless does, and that includes user registration, user login, password recovery, everything that you do with the database, like saving data in the database, retrieving data, updating objects, deleting objects, creating relations, setting permissions. Of course, there is file service where you can upload files, move files, send out push notifications. It's a full platform. Everything that you can think that a backend should do, more than likely, 99.9% Backendless already does it. But here, let's focus on this API service. So for every single thing that I was kind of going back, for every single thing that Backendless can do, there is a block, okay? And in here, let's say we go to the data API. You see there is just a bunch of blocks. And every single block is functionality. Okay, and that functionality basically right here in the title, it says what it is. So in our case, let's use the block that says load table objects. Drag it out here, just connect. And then in here, we are going to retrieve from countries, and we're going to, let's say, you're going to get 100 objects, okay? And then you see how many different connectors you have. Here you can specify conditions and aggregation function and get additional relations and do the grouping and then use the page size and page. There is a lot, but in the most trivial sense, this is going to be our functionality. So let's deploy this code. And the code is automatically generated. You can actually see what the code looks like. And in fact, if you go to the code, here's this code that is generated by whatever the logic that you put in here. We're going back to API services. And in here, this is our API service. If we click invoke, I think I put the database table wrong, so let's take a look. It is, I think it's called country, and then I put the name countries. So let's quickly fix that, and it's going to be country. Redeploy that code. And if we go back to API services, click invoke. Did I not save it? I think I didn't save it. Country, press enter, deploy model. There we go. And now it is country, click invoke, and then we get this result. So it's already something powerful, because for this API service that we created, once again, without any code at all, we already have full-blown REST API that can be invoked from anywhere in the world, and I can put the security restrictions. And in here, if I were just to copy this URL, open it up in the browser, retrieve. So here it is. This is my codeless API service already working, retrieving data from the database. I can add additional arguments, pass those arguments into the API service. So at this point, I can start making richer and richer and richer. And also, just like we did with the database, here you can generate API docs in Swagger and just a bunch of different formats if you want to bring this API service into your no-code tool that you use to build the application and start tapping into this functionality from anywhere else in the world. If you are a coder, what you can do is you can just download an SDK that we generate on the fly for that very service for Android, JavaScript, iOS, Flutter. So all those options will give you a generated code, if you are a coder, that you can use to start working with this API service. So this is like a super compressed demo of some of the capabilities of Backendless. There is a lot more in there for push notifications, for emails, and so on. I will skip that because I want to move into the UI building capabilities. So notice that so far we spent our time in the backend section, okay, right here, backend. But there's also front-end section. So if you click on that, this will give you the front-end development capabilities, which is, fairly similar UI between multiple other tools. You get your toolbox with a bunch of different components. You can drag and drop, you can do the layout and so on. You can change the form factor just to see what it looks like on the mobile, on tablet, on the desktop. And here you can start composing your UIs. The cool thing about the Backendless, it's a fully integrated platform. Not only you have super powerful backend that is highly scalable, it will scale automatically when the traffic goes up, but you have this UI that is automatically integrated with the backend. So let me demonstrate one thing. I'll demonstrate several things. But the first one is going to be, how do you get data from the database? Because a lot of applications that we see are data-driven. So here you want to basically create a system where we can just retrieve data from database. And then in the most trivial sense, and there are multiple ways to do this, but in the most trivial way, there is a component called data table. So we drag it out here. So here's our data table. Let me adjust the height just so it takes 100%. And for this data table, what I want to do is I want to connect it with a database table on the back end. Notice there is one of the properties that is called table. And in here, it just shows a list of tables that I have in my database. So let's select, for instance, city, okay? And we can configure what columns to show by clicking configure. And I'm just gonna hide some of the columns that are not needed and then move the name column to be the first. Notice that you can select whether they're searchable, editable, sortable, like all those things are available to you out of the box. At this point, we already have a page that retrieves cities. We haven't added any code. We haven't added any logic. And let's take a look at what it looks like already at this point. So click on this preview. The page loads up. And there you go. We get our cities. We can specify how many records per page we can see. You can do paging. Just start going through those cities. You can use search. For instance, let me search for Dallas. There you go. Dallas, Texas, population. And it is already super functional because here, without access to the management console, you can create a page that does all these things. Well, what if we want to start add an ability to add new records or modify existing records? Well, in this case, you do allow add, allow edit, allow delete. By the way, notice that there is enable real-time. And what that means is that the Backendless database is a real-time database. If you have multiple users looking at the same data set and one person modifies a record, all other users will receive a real-time event saying that that record has been modified. So everyone's going to be looking at the latest data. So now I added add, edit, and delete. Let me rerun this page. And here we already have an ability to add new record. There you go. So I can add a new city. I can modify any of the existing cities. There you go. They become editable. And then likewise, I can delete any of the cities. So all of that is available to you out of the box without any coding. But you can start adding logic to do whatever you want. Like, for instance, if you want to do some filtering searches, if you want to specify, like click on the city and you want to get the country that it belongs to, all of that is possible with Backendless. And the way that logic works is we're using the same code list. Remember when I was building an API service, exactly the same thing can be done to create UIs. Let me demonstrate something that has already a lot of logic and just works out of the box. And that something is going to be a chat. Okay, so we're not going to be building the full chat, but we will use a function in Backendless that gives you a sample, sort of a blueprint of how to implement chat. And not only that, once I get this chat working, I'll share that link in the chat for the conference, so everyone can just jump into this chat and participate in this, which I think will be pretty cool, assuming that everything works. So number one thing that I'm going to do is I will create a new app, and I will call it Chat app. Notice that there are blueprints, and one of them is called GeoChat. Let's create. So this creates a brand new application that has a bunch of functionality in it. If we go to front end, notice that there is already a page, which is going to be the chat page. All the logic is already there. We will take a look at it once we run it. And what I'm going to do is I will need to put in Google API key. If we go here, and this is for the Google Maps, okay? And at this point, if I run this page, there's going to be a login, and just in here, use whatever name that you want, click login, and this chat interface will simply open. So what I will do is I will take this URL, there you go, and let me say, hi guys from Dallas, Texas. And then once this message goes out, assuming that it does, I'm not seeing the message. Beauty of, or maybe it hasn't detected my location yet. Let's just see if I'm running the right thing. I think I am. Something didn't go right because I'm not seeing the message. Well, as it usually happens, or sometimes happens with demos, I'm not sure what exactly went wrong. Just close some browsers. Or maybe because I'm running in incognito. But let me just take a look at the backend real quick. I will delete these two users and rerun this chat. There you go. So now I have this message. So what I will do is I will copy this link and I will send it to my private chat with the organizers. And I hope they will be, that link will be resent to the overall chat for the conference. So all of you can try it out and just start participating in this. And while this is going on, I will move that window out of the way. And what I will do is I will switch to the front end just to show how some of that logic works. So in here, if I select this page and I go to the on-page enter, as you can see, this is what the logic looks like. And in here, we get the current location, and then we put it into the page data. And then I will not go to the actual logic, but most of the logic that you will see here is going to be looking like this. And then here in the page that I have on the second screen, I see that a bunch of users started joining the session, and we have someone from Brazil here saying, "Hey, so this is great. This thing is working," and I love it. All right. So I hope this gives you a good idea of what Backendless is, of the capabilities that it has. If you want to start learning more about it, there is a full-blown tutorial on our YouTube channel and in udemy.com if you search for Backendless. There is also, we have a booth here because we're one of the sponsors. So if you go into the Backendless booth, you can chat with us, you can see some additional demos. And for now, I will just go back to, I guess, not sure what it's called, the backstage, I guess, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
That's fantastic, Mark. Thank you so much for showing us all of that. We do have a few minutes for a Q&A here, and we have a few questions that came in here. The first one here, can Backendless replace, for example, MongoDB and serve real-time processes for messaging apps?
Absolutely. Yes, it can. It can replace not only MongoDB, it can replace your SQL Server or MySQL. Backendless database has the qualities of both relational and non-relational database. You can store your JSON documents, and we provide a bunch of APIs to work with your JSON. We can store relational data, so you can have a data object that represents, for instance, an order, and you can have related data objects that are going to be order items, and you can retrieve order items for your order if you have relational structure. If you have non-relational with JSON, we support that as well. So for real-time processes, the real-time capability that we have built in has all this functionality where if one object is created, updated, or deleted, all other users that have this object in possession or subscribe to receive the events will receive real-time notification.
Very cool. Yeah, it's a very, very good, very robust service, it sounds like. A few other questions we have here. Can we develop features like threaded comments on videos or images posted on our applications using Backendless?
Definitely, definitely. So you would need to think about creating a data structure that supports threaded comments. So if you have, let's say, top post, and you have immediate responses, and then recursively you can have a response that basically has other collection of responses. So that's going to be your threaded structure. But if you can think about your problem logically and structure the data in a way that basically would represent it in a form of records or JSON, you can definitely migrate it or implement it in Backendless.
Cool, very good. And then another question we have come in here. Can we display, I assume this is PowerPoint and PDF docs in the applications developed using Backendless?
Sure. Well, if you need to think about the Backendless as a combination of the backend and the front end, right? So if it is the backend, there is a file storage in the system that where you can store anything you want. And the file storage, you can put your PDFs, images, Word documents, Excel, JSON, video files, doesn't really matter. And then we provide the APIs where you can retrieve those files with the URL, of course, with a lot of permissions that you can configure. So you can specify that non-authenticated users cannot retrieve files, or a user needs to be in a certain role to retrieve that file. And then in the UI application that you're building with Backendless, let's say if you need to retrieve a PDF document and you're relying, it would be a plugin, right, in the browser that renders PDF, because I don't think none of the browsers can render it natively. Then it would be an iframe that would initialize that PDF viewer and render the document there. And that is definitely possible because we do have an iframe component.
Cool, very good. And then let's see, they just keep coming on. So what we have next is, do you provide full solution to cloud security and back management?
I would assume back management means backend management, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. So yes, we do. So we have customers that are banks, universities, hospitals, medical institutions. So we have gone through numerous security audits to make sure that the backendless implementation is as secure as possible and satisfies multiple requirements that you would have either from HIPAA or FERPA or financial industry regulations and requirements. So all of it is there. Backendless is available in the central installation. In the cloud, we do have a North American and very soon European data center. They're fully integrated. But you can also run Backendless on your own servers, okay? And that's one of the revenue models that we have, where if you cannot rely on our cloud and you just want to have full control of the servers, you can download and install Backendless on your own servers. In fact, Backendless runs anywhere where you can run Docker. If you can run Docker, you can basically spin up an instance of Backendless on your own servers and your own infrastructure.
Cool, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for all of the information here, Mark. We're going to transition out here as my colleague Vlad has a new intro coming up soon. So I really appreciate all your time today, Mark, and we really appreciate Backendless being a sponsor for our conference today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.